Steve Harvey stops the show when teen reveals he's been living in a school library for 4 years. What you're about to witness will challenge everything you think you know about success, determination, and survival in modern America. This is the story of 18-year-old Aiden Jefferson, whose shocking revelation on national television would expose a 4-year secret that left an entire studio in tears and changed Family Feud forever. You'll see the exact moment when Steve Harvey stopped being an entertainer and became a lifeline for a young man who had been hiding in plain sight for years. Watch as the most successful student at Jefferson High School reveals the devastating truth about how he achieved his perfect grades and where he's been sleeping every single night since freshman year. This isn't just another heartwarming game show moment. This is the story of a teenager who turned a high school library into his home, who lived as a ghost in the American education system, and whose courage to tell his truth would spark a nationwide conversation about the students we never see coming. Picture the Family Feud studio in Atlanta, Georgia, on what appears to be just another Tuesday afternoon taping. You're watching Steve Harvey command the stage in his signature navy blue suit, that million-dollar smile lighting up the room as 300 audience members settle into their seats, ready for an hour of America's favorite family game show. You're looking at the Martinez family from Phoenix, Arizona, facing off against what the show's producers believe is the Jefferson family from Detroit, Michigan. Standard setup, familiar energy, the kind of wholesome competition that has made Family Feud a beloved American institution for generations. The lights are perfect, the cameras are positioned for maximum entertainment value, and everyone expects this to unfold exactly like thousands of episodes before it. But you're about to see something that will shatter that expectation completely. What you don't know yet, what nobody in that studio knows, is that one of the contestants standing at that podium has been carrying a secret so devastating, so impossible to believe, that when it finally comes to light, it will stop the show cold and leave Steve Harvey speechless for the first time in his career. Let me take you back 4 years to where this incredible story really begins. Picture a 14-year-old boy sitting on a mattress on the floor of a Detroit apartment, staring at a bright yellow eviction notice while his mother lies unconscious on a couch, surrounded by empty bottles and broken promises. This is Aiden Jefferson, and in 72 hours he's about to lose the only home he's ever known. You're looking at a teenager who has been academically gifted since elementary school, the kind of student teachers love to showcase as proof that hard work overcomes any obstacle. Perfect grades, honor roll every semester, standardized test scores in the top percentile nationally. What you don't see is that his perfect attendance isn't about dedication to learning, it's about survival. Watch what happens when a brilliant teenager decides that losing his housing won't cost him his future. See how he transforms from a homeless child into a master of invisibility, living in the shadows of the American education system, while achieving academic excellence that amazes everyone around him. You're witnessing the moment when Aiden makes a choice that will define the next 4 years of his life. He won't enter foster care and abandon his mother. He won't drop out of school. Instead, he'll do something that seems impossible. He'll finish high school, graduate as valedictorian, and earn a full scholarship to college while living completely on his own. Here's what's about to happen that no teacher, no administrator, no classmate will ever suspect. Aiden Jefferson is about to become a ghost, disappearing into the night and reappearing each morning as the perfect student everyone admires but nobody truly knows. Follow him as he conducts what he calls reconnaissance missions during his first week of high school, mapping every hallway, every exit, every space that might offer shelter. Watch as he discovers that Jefferson High School's library stays open until 10 p.m., that the security guard works alone overnight, and that the building's massive size and outdated security protocols create perfect conditions for someone who needs to remain invisible. You're seeing the birth of a survival system that would impress military strategists. Aiden identifies Mr. Williams, the elderly security guard, whose jazz radio provides comfort through lonely nights. He learns the schedules of every janitor, every late-working teacher, every person who might discover his secret. Here's what becomes Aiden's new reality. The library transforms into his bedroom, where he creates a hidden alcove from study materials that's invisible from the main walkways. The computer lab becomes his homework center. The gymnasium serves as his bathroom and shower facility. 3 outfits rotating through his gym locker, washed by hand in sink basins and dried overnight with hand dryers. You're watching academic excellence born from desperation rather than privilege. See how Aiden maintains a perfect 4.0 GPA, not because he has every advantage, but because education is literally his only path to survival. Books become his escape, learning becomes his sanctuary, and knowledge becomes the only possession that nobody can take away from him. This is what 4 years of invisible suffering looks like. Every single night, Aiden sleeps on library floors. Not occasionally when things get bad. Every night, for 1,461 nights, he creates a home where none should exist, turning a high school into his secret residence. Watch how he survives Detroit winters when the library's heating system reduces to minimal operation overnight. See him layer every piece of clothing he owns, position himself near the one working vent, study through chattering teeth while writing essays about hope and perseverance, literally living those themes while writing about them. You're seeing the daily performance of a lifetime. Every morning, Aiden transforms from a teenager sleeping on library floors into the picture-perfect honor student who never misses an assignment, never arrives late, never gives teachers any reason to suspect that anything in his life is anything less than completely normal. But here's the part that will break your heart: the emotional toll of absolute isolation. Watch as Aiden navigates the impossible challenge of having friends without being able to form genuine relationships. See him deflect questions about family dinners, weekend plans, and home life with the skill of a professional spy. Every conversation becomes a minefield, every social interaction a performance, every moment of normalcy something he has to carefully construct rather than naturally experience. You'll witness the closest he comes to breaking during his junior year, when his English teacher, Mrs. Patterson, notices nothing troubling in his creative writing. His essays are technically perfect but emotionally devastating, filled with insights about isolation and survival that seem to come from lived experience rather than imagination. Watch the moment she asks if everything is okay at home, and see Aiden almost confess everything: the eviction, the abandonment, the endless nights on cold floors. Almost ask for the help he desperately needs, but is too proud and too terrified to request. Instead, he deploys that practiced smile and claims he just has a dramatic imagination. You're seeing Mrs. Patterson recognize that there's more to this story, but respect his boundaries. When she tells him her door is always open, you're witnessing one of the few moments of genuine kindness in Aiden's lonely world. Kindness he can't accept because accepting help means revealing his secret. By senior year, you're looking at a young man whose achievements have become legendary. At Jefferson High School, 12 university acceptance letters, including full-ride scholarships to 3 prestigious institutions. Teachers use him as an example of what's possible when talent meets dedication. College recruiters call him once in a generation. The bitter irony isn't lost on anyone who learns his story. Everyone wants to claim credit for his success, when the truth is he achieved everything entirely on his own, without any of the advantages his classmates took for granted. He became valedictorian not because of his circumstances, but in spite of them. Now you're back in that Family Feud studio, watching Aiden stand at the podium surrounded by the people who unknowingly saved his life. Mrs. Patterson, the teacher who offered kindness he couldn't accept. Principal Rodriguez, who provided shelter without knowing it. Coach Martinez, who taught him that showing up was half the battle. Mr. Williams, the security guard whose jazz music comforted him through lonely nights. Mrs. Chen, the librarian whose sanctuary literally made his survival possible. The show was supposed to be a celebration, a fun experience before college. Mrs. Patterson surprised him with the trip as a graduation gift, saying he'd worked harder than any student she'd ever taught. having no idea how literally true those words were. You're watching the game proceed normally through 3 rounds. See Steve working his magic, getting laughs from survey answers, keeping the energy high. Aiden plays his part perfectly. The brilliant student celebrating with his surrogate family, smiling for the cameras, giving no hint of the crushing weight he's carrying. Then comes the 4th round, and the question that will change everything. Name something a student might do to impress their teacher. Watch Steve's face as the first few answers reveal themselves. Study hard takes the number 1 spot. Come prepared appears at number 3. Standard responses that make the audience nod in recognition. 2 answers remain hidden, and now it's Aiden's turn. You're about to witness the moment when 4 years of carefully guarded secrets explode onto national television, in front of millions of viewers. Listen carefully to what happens next. Live at school, Aiden says quietly. See Steve's trademark smile falter. This isn't a typical Family Feud answer. The studio energy shifts immediately. Live at school, young man. Can you explain that? Here's where everything changes forever. Watch Aiden's composure crumble, as 4 years of isolation, fear, and incredible strength finally pour out. I've been living at Jefferson High School for 4 years, he says, his voice carrying clearly through the stunned silence. Every night, in the library, since freshman year, you're witnessing Steve Harvey experience something unprecedented in his decades of television hosting. Watch his cards drop to his side as he processes what he's just heard. See the exact moment when entertainment becomes something much more profound. The studio falls completely silent. 300 audience members hold their breath. In that silence, you can hear the weight of 4 years of secrets finally being released. Son, Steve says, stepping closer, all traces of his entertainment persona stripped away. Are you telling me you've been homeless for 4 years? Listen to Aiden's response, and understand that you're hearing one of the most powerful admissions ever captured on television. I had a home, the library, Mrs. Chen's library. Mr. Williams, the security guard, never knew, but I've been sleeping there every night since I was 14, studying there, living there, surviving there. Look at the audience now. See the tears starting to flow as 300 people realize they're witnessing something extraordinary. Watch Principal Rodriguez in the audience as the blood drains from his face, understanding for the first time that his star student has been living in his building without anyone's knowledge. You're about to see why Steve Harvey is more than just an entertainer. Watch him make the decision to abandon his role as game show host and become something else entirely. A source of comfort for a young man who has carried an impossible burden alone for 4 years. See the moment when Steve sets down his microphone, walks across the stage, and pulls Aiden into a hug that isn't about television, isn't about ratings, isn't about anything except human compassion meeting extraordinary courage. Son, Steve says, his own voice breaking. What you've accomplished isn't just impressive, it's miraculous. You didn't just survive, you thrived. You didn't just endure, you excelled. You took the worst circumstances imaginable and turned them into the greatest success story I've ever heard. Watch as Steve turns to address the cameras directly, making sure everyone understands the magnitude of what they're witnessing. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to understand what we're seeing here. This young man didn't just become valedictorian despite being homeless. He became valedictorian by being homeless. He turned a library into a home, school into a family, and education into salvation. Now you'll see something that has never happened in Family Feud history. Steve Harvey is about to use live television to solve a problem in real time. Watch him pull out his phone and spend the next 10 minutes making calls to hotel managers, university representatives, and his own foundation. You're witnessing compassion in action as Steve ensures that Aiden's nights of sleeping on library floors are over forever. By the time he finishes those phone calls, Aiden has guaranteed housing not just for the remaining weeks until graduation, but a full support system to ensure his transition to college will be everything he's dreamed of. But the most powerful moment is still coming. You're about to witness Principal Rodriguez walk onto that stage, tears streaming down his face, to deliver an apology and a recognition that will move you to tears. Aiden, the principal says, I've been an educator for 15 years. I've seen thousands of students come through Jefferson High. But what you've accomplished, what you've achieved while I was completely unaware of your struggle, that makes you the greatest teacher I've ever encountered. Listen to what he says next. You taught me that sometimes our best students aren't the ones with the most advantages. Sometimes they're the ones with the most obstacles. You taught me that dedication can look like desperation, that excellence can emerge from despair, and that the students who need us most might be the ones who never ask for help. Watch as the studio erupts in applause, not the typical game show cheering, but something deeper. Something that recognizes the sacred nature of what they've just witnessed. The episode that aired months later became the highest-rated Family Feud in the show's history. Not because of drama or excitement, but because viewers recognized something they rarely see on television: authentic human connection in its purest form. Fast forward 3 weeks to Aiden's valedictorian speech, delivered to an auditorium packed not just with students and families, but with news crews and education advocates who have learned his story. You'll hear words that will stay with you long after this video ends. To any student listening who feels invisible, who feels alone, who thinks their circumstances define their possibilities, you are not your situation. You are your determination. You are not where you sleep. You are what you dream. And sometimes the greatest classrooms aren't buildings with 4 walls. Sometimes they're the spaces we create in our hearts for hope to grow. Here's what happened next, and why this story matters beyond one incredible moment of television. Aiden's revelation sparked a nationwide conversation about student homelessness that led to policy changes in school districts across America. You're looking at the catalyst for new programs that have identified and helped thousands of students experiencing housing instability. Watch as Jefferson High School transforms from a place where a student could be invisible for 4 years into a model for supporting vulnerable teenagers. The library is renamed the Jefferson Learning Sanctuary, with a permanent plaque that reads, "In honor of a student who proved that home isn't where you sleep, it's where you grow." See how Mrs. Chen, the librarian, keeps Aiden's graduation photo on her desk alongside a symbolic key, the key she now gives to any student who needs a safe place to study late, with her personal guarantee that no child will ever have to sleep on floors again. You're witnessing the long-term impact of courage. Aiden graduates summa cum laude from the University of Michigan and returns to Detroit as Director of Student Support Services, dedicating his career to ensuring that no other student has to survive the way he did. Under his leadership, the Detroit Public School District has identified over 800 homeless students and provided them with comprehensive support. Look at what this single episode accomplished beyond the television screen. The video has been viewed over 50 million times across platforms, translated into multiple languages, and used in educational programs worldwide. But for Aiden, the real measure of success isn't in views or recognition. It's in the emails he receives from teenagers who found the courage to seek help after hearing his story. You're seeing proof that sometimes the most powerful moments in television happen not when you follow the script, but when you throw it away and follow your heart. Steve Harvey learned that day that his job wasn't just to entertain, it was to recognize the humanity in every story that walked across his stage. Here's why this story will stay with you. It challenges every assumption about success, privilege, and what it means to achieve excellence in America. You've just witnessed proof that sometimes the students who seem to need help the least are actually the ones who need it the most. This is more than a story about homelessness or academic achievement. This is a story about the extraordinary lengths human beings will go to in pursuit of a better future. It's about the teachers who save lives simply by creating safe spaces for learning. It's about the power of education to transform circumstances that seem hopeless into opportunities for greatness. You've seen how 4 years of invisible suffering transformed into visible change, How one young man's courage to speak his truth on national television became a voice for thousands of students who had been suffering in silence. How the most powerful education happens not in classrooms, but in the spaces between what we see and what we understand about the lives of the people around us. Most importantly, you've just witnessed what happens when someone finally sees a student who has been invisible for years. When Steve Harvey chose to stop entertaining and start listening, he reminded all of us that sometimes the most important thing we can do is simply acknowledge someone's pain and let them know they're not alone. The homeless valedictorian's secret has become a beacon of hope for students across America who are fighting battles nobody sees. It's proof that circumstances don't define destiny, that excellence can emerge from despair, and that sometimes the greatest victories are won by young people who refuse to let the worst situations defeat their biggest dreams. Every time you see a student who seems to have it all together, remember Aiden Jefferson. Remember that some of our brightest stars have learned to shine in the darkest places. Remember that behind every success story is a human being who deserves to be seen, heard, and supported. And remember that sometimes it takes a game show host with the courage to stop the show and start caring to remind us all what really matters. Not the points on a board, but the person standing behind the podium, carrying secrets that could either crush them or, with the right support, transform them into something extraordinary. This is the story of the homeless valedictorian, who turned his greatest vulnerability into his greatest strength, and in doing so, showed America that home isn't where you sleep, it's where you're allowed to grow, to dream, and to become everything you were meant to be. Watch this story, share this story, and remember that somewhere right now, there's a student sitting in a library, sleeping on floors, surviving on hope and determination alone. Your awareness, your compassion, your willingness to see the invisible students around you. That's how we make sure Aiden Jefferson's story becomes not just an inspiration, but a call to action. Because every student deserves to be seen. Every student deserves support, and every student deserves to know that their circumstances are not their destiny. Their courage is.